I decided to come on here to share my life story. I decided to use this platform because I tend to get stuck quite often on the words I'm trying to use to express what it is I'm feeling at the moment. I am a survivor of intra-familial captivity abuse with incest. What I mean by that is I grew up in a family that was aware that there was abuse going on. They were aware that I was being physically abused, mentally abused, psychologically abused, physiologically abused, and sexually abused. Although I wasn't aware of the fact that they knew about the sexual abuse until I was a lot older. I turned my stepfather in the first time when I was 11 or 12, I think. Again, my years are a bit hazy because of the abuse I suffered. I remember it wasn't even me who had come forward and told somebody. What had happened was there was one person who knew what I was going through. I mean, everybody else knew about the other abuse because everybody's seen it. But there was only one person who knew about the sexual abuse. So, in 7th grade, I couldn't take it anymore, and I was thinking about killing my stepfather. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to turn anybody in because I didn't want to break up the family, because I believed it was my fault. Again, children believe that the abuse is their fault. And I didn't turn him in before that because I was not aware that what was happening was abuse. We don't talk about sexual abuse. It's such a taboo subject that people instantly tune you out when they hear it. And the outcome of that is a prevalence of child sexual abuse that is impossible to not be able to see. Anybody who says that it's not happening is either a liar or a pedophile themselves. Anyway, back to my story. First time I turned him in, somebody had found the note that me and this cousin had been writing back and forth trying to figure out, how I was going to kill my stepfather. Straight up. 7th grade, I don't know, 11, 12 years old. Again, my years are messed up. Apparently, one of us had lost the note. Now that I look back, I think she was the one that turned the note in, because I think she's behind a lot of what I'm going through right now. Anyway, the note had been lost. Somebody had found it, and I ended up being called down to the nurse's office. You're not going to... The nurse showed me the note. I'm sorry, this is hard still. Asked me what was going on. At first I said no, because I was afraid. Of course I was afraid. I had been being abused by a man that weighed over 300 pounds for as long as I can remember, and I was not even 12 years old yet. But I was also afraid of being abused even more. So I did what children are taught to do. And children are taught to speak up if they're being abused. Children are taught to tell someone if someone is touching you. The thing that people are totally oblivious of is children don't know any better. So the people who are abusing them are grooming them into believing that it is their fault. And unfortunately, in many cases, the other parent either ignores the abuse or they're also abusive themselves. Anyway, back to the first time I turned him in. The nurse had shown me the note. I finally admitted it. They called my mother. They called DIFUS, which is Division of Youth and Family Services here in New Jersey. And, you know, my mother came in. And now that I look back, she didn't seem at all surprised. She wasn't crying. She was too calm, in my opinion. Her first question to me was, are you saying this because you're getting your report card today? And now here's the thing is, kindergarten through 6th grade, I was making pretty much straight A's. And then when we had the assembly at school and I learned that the abuse that I was experiencing was actually abuse, is when my grades started going down. Because they don't teach children about that in school until, you know, later on in elementary. I can still feel when she asked me that. And I could feel the doubt and the denial in her. Whether that was because she didn't want to believe that it had happened on her watch, or whether she just didn't believe me, or because she already knew and she had to put on a show for everybody. Which I'm thinking the latter there is more likely to be the reality of the situation. Anyway, I remember bits and pieces of that day. I remember going to the house where he was. I remember, you know, I don't know if it was a police officer or a DIFUS lady, social worker, getting out of the car with me and walking up to the front steps where John was standing in the doorway. And she asked him right in front of me if he abused me. And he said yes, with a smile on his face. Like, this man was not remorseful. This man was a sociopath and a pedophile to boot. Anyway, I remember having to go in and get stuff. They were going to take me to my grandmother's. Even then, I found it odd that I was the one that was being taken out of the home. He was left in the home with 2 other children that were younger than me, even after he just admitted to sexually abusing a child for years. And I lived with my grandmother for a year after that. I went to Gateway, lived in National Park, and I went to Gateway Regional High School. Before that, I had grew up in Paulsboro, and I went to Billingsport and Paulsboro High. Now, the whole year that I was with my grandmother, John was allowed access to me. He was allowed to have visitation. DIFUS and the many other counseling places forced us to go to counseling together. I remember a lot of the other girls that were there acting as if what was happening to them was okay. They believed that what their father was doing to them was love. And I can assure you, pedophilia has nothing to do with love. It doesn't even have anything to do with attraction. It has to do with control and manipulation and abuse. It has to do with the intent to try to destroy someone's innocence. So, even back then, I realized how odd it was that he was allowed to have access. He actually was given visitation rights, even though he wasn't my real father. And he would come and visit, and the family would just sit there with him, and it was so awkward. And I you know, even at 12 years old, I just couldn't like understand what the fuck was going on. Like, why are we all sitting here with this man that we know is a straight up fucking sociopath? I'm scared to death of him, and y'all are wanting me to fucking spend time with him. You know, in the counseling sessions with Dyfus and all that, they didn't talk about what I had gone through. I mean, just the fact that they were counseling me and the person who abused me together. The fact that they were counseling a pedophile and his child victim is fucking immoral. It's downright abusive in itself. Dyfus and these many programs are nothing but child trafficking factories. They do nothing but deliberately traumatize children. And I'm not saying that everybody involved in it is a bad person, but the longer they stay in, the worse they are, because you cannot stay in that kind of job and not see what's going on. So I remember the counselors teaching me about John, about the reasons why John was abusing me, teaching me that he wasn't trying to harm me, that was the only way that he was taught to show love. Like, they were deliberately telling children that what he was doing, although it felt wrong, it wasn't going to affect us, it shouldn't affect us, and that if it did, basically, it was all in our head. So again, it was victim blaming. It was placing the responsibility for the adult's actions on the child. And because the child doesn't know any better, the child believes that it's their fault. Well, fuck, I was just born bad. Like, Jesus, like, what did I do to you, God, that you felt that I deserved to live like this? You know, so that whole year, I felt a little bit safer, you know, because I wasn't around him constantly. And at this point, the abuse wasn't happening because I wasn't left alone with him. And I guess because he was on his best behavior, because they wouldn't have gotten me back if he would have touched me, as far as I know. Now that I'm thinking, Dyfus didn't give a fuck. They were just going to make sure that I stayed with the man who was abusing me, and that's exactly what they did. A year after, they declared him cured. I was 13, 14. I remember the day. I remember the feeling. I remember the look I gave the counselor. Even at 12 or 13, I knew she was dumb as fucking rocks. Excuse my language. Sometimes I get pissed off. It's a subject that most people should really get pissed off about. She said, "We're gonna let you go back home." And I asked her, "Well, what's John? Is John still there?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't want to go back home. Can I stay at my grandmother's?" "Your grandmother said you can't stay with her no more." "Okay. Can you send me somewhere else?" I don't, he's not going to stop. I don't want to go back. I could tell the whole year that he was allowed around me that the man didn't give a fuck, and he wasn't going to stop. That second he could lay his hands on me, he was. They proceeded to try to convince me that he was cured of pedophilia. And I'm going to tell you, First off, pedophilia is not uncontrollable. It is not. They don't do it because they were abused, even if they were abused. They don't do it because they can't help themselves. They don't do it because they're attracted to people. They do it because they're trying to destroy the light in that child. They're trying to destroy their innocence because they're jealous of it. There is no attraction involved. There's no love involved. You know, pedophiles have been, playing the victim for decades, and they're sociopaths. Because as a survivor, I've never once had the urge to molest a child. I've never been sexually attracted to a child. I've never wanted to do to anybody what it was done to me. In fact, it made me the total opposite. And I know and I understand that everybody's unique, everybody's different. I get that. But if it was true that hurt people, then everybody who has been abused would be abusing the people that they're with. And the logic in this is so easy to understand, and yet people are afraid of seeing reality for what it is. Now, I know that there's many, many reasons for this. Most of them are personal and most likely deeply subconscious, and the person themselves does not even know why they do the things they do. But, shit, I forget where I was going with that. Alright, I was going to say that's the first video, but I might as well see how much I can put in here. So yeah, I was sent back home, and the abuse resumed. Only this time, I was aware that everybody else was aware that the abuse was going on. For the next 6 to 7 years, the family still remained to do normal things that families do. You know, Sunday dinners where the families would come from Pennsylvania and everybody would get together. Yes, it was as awkward and disturbing as it sounds. These people that called themselves my aunts and my uncles would come in and hang out smiling all day with the man who was abusing me. They never once spoke up for me. Not the many times they see me backhanded off the kitchen chair. Not any of the times I was sent to bed without being allowed to eat. The times that I was denied food. The times I was punched in the face. The times I was pulled by my hair. Nobody ever said anything. Although they, every once in a while they would come and pat me on my back and, oh, we're so sorry. We wish we could help you. If we could, we would take you with us. And after a while, I realized not to even listen to what they said, because them actually saying that made it worse. Them saying that they loved me and they wanted to help me and they wanted to save me, and then ending it with, but there's nothing that we can do, would get my hopes up. Only to have me comfort them for their failure in protecting a child. You see how that works? They weren't telling me this because they really wanted to help me. They were telling me this because they wanted to put that heavy burden of knowing that a child is being deliberately fucking tortured onto the child themselves, because they didn't want to have to deal with it. So then they could go home free and clear of that disturbing energy. And this is what happens to the abused child, is the families, it's not only the abuser themselves, but the families put the guilt and the responsibility of their actions on that child. So is it any wonder that so many survivors like myself don't live to be my age? Most survivors commit suicide before they're 50, man. Because they've been lied about and ostracized and isolated from everybody they've known. Family, right from the rip, right from the beginning, have been gossiping and lying about me because they cannot handle what they did, and they can't handle the truth. So they've destroyed my character. I can't get a job. I don't have any friends. It's been 3 years since I had a friend, and even before then, I don't believe that I even had a friend to begin with. I've never been shown any compassion or mercy from anybody in the family. The abuser himself has been dead for over 10 years, and yet the family is still abusive. They still deny reality. They lie to my face. They keep things from me. They've stolen an inheritance and have been keeping it from me. And I've been struggling for years to get on my feet because being abused messes with our growth development. It causes disconnections and stunting. Causes the chemicals in our brains not to grow correctly. That's why many children who are abused grow up to become addicts. Yeah. That's just a little bit of my story, and I think I'm going to end it there. Thank you for listening. I hope this helps somebody out there. I hope what I'm doing helps somebody else who has been through or is going through abuse. Because if I can help just one person from understanding the things that I understand now, if I can help one person understand that love cannot be in a place where hate is being carried out. Talk to you soon.